Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Healthy, Wealthy, and Smart podcast. I am your host, Dr. Karen Litzy, physical therapist and owner of Karen Litzy Physical Therapy in New York City. And today we are focused on businesses. So I'm a business owner. I know a lot of you listening are small business owners. And there are always ways to help streamline your business to help make your life easier. So I'm really happy to welcome to the podcast today Lee Benson. He is passionate about helping organizations create value. He's a sought after speaker and author on the topics of value creation, leadership, execution, and strategy. We will get into his books a little bit later in the podcast, but Lee, welcome to the podcast.
Aaron, it's so good to be here. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Now, before we get started, um, I would love for you to give the listeners a little bit more of a background on you and why you're the expert, why you're here.
Okay, so most experts, it's sort of interesting. They talk about things and they haven't done it for a long time or they've never done it. So being called an expert can be interesting. I'm a big fan of being on the front lines and creating value. And I've started 8 companies from scratch now. I've had 3 exits. The biggest one was well into 9 figures. It was in aerospace where we repaired, overhauled, and manufactured aircraft parts and grew from 3 employees and almost going out of business 15 times in the first year to over 500 employees doing business in 60 countries, had over 2,000 customers, an incredible journey, sold it to the perfect strategic buyer in 2016. So a lot of experience. And then today I still work with a number of companies. I have my own mastermind groups. It's called Execute Mastermind. 3 groups that I run. I have chairs that are certified that have their groups. So all of that, and we help companies implement something we call the mind management system, which is basically what I've developed over the decades to help get much better results in the companies that I've sold.
Amazing. And gosh, there's so much I want to ask, mainly around kind of creating all these different businesses. Like, how do you have the bandwidth for that? Like, sometimes I feel like running my own business, I'm like, burning out at my wits' ends at times. So, how do you kind of create and sell and do all of that with so many different businesses?
Yeah, the team matters, and one of the things I've been thinking a lot about lately, because I listen to a lot of CEOs and founders that complain about where they're at, basically saying, I have to do all these different things, wear all these different hats. I wish if I could just do this, everything would be better. And so my feedback is you need to be the CEO that your business needs you to be today, or president, leader, whatever you want to call it, founder. And in an early stage, it's about getting the functional structure set up. So how do we create awareness for our business? People need to know about us. We want to reach the right persona, folks. How do we actually get them to buy what we have? And then how do we onboard them? And how do we ensure this amazing ongoing experience that's so good they're all telling 2 friends to come our way? So at first, of course, we're in the middle of all of that, but over time, as we grow, we're developing folks that could be a working lead manager in each area, eventually a leader over each area that's constantly building momentum and working with each other to keep it all in balance so you can continually and responsibly grow the value of the business, which includes value for all stakeholders, our customers, all of that kind of stuff. So when I think back to the aerospace company example, I actually bundled 2 into 1 when I sold it to Textron in 2016. The first few years, 93 through 98, 2000 in that range, 80 to 100 hours a week in the middle of everything, having an absolute blast. I knew we were doing the right stuff because the harder it got, the harder we would laugh. And for sure, as I said, we just about went out of business 15 times the first year. It was crazy. And then at the end, when I sold it, it didn't take 15 hours a week to run the business because I had all of that structure in place and leaders building momentum in each area. So all the way along, we need to be the CEO or founder that we need to be at that time for the business. And something it'd be interesting to talk to you about is just perspective on struggle, because we get to do this stuff. We're not victims. This is so cool. People admire us. We have our own business. Karen, you're so successful. You must have all this money. It must be so great. Yeah, it's hard, but how do we develop if we don't struggle? It's like doing physical therapy. If I don't
Mhm.
do work, it's not going to get better. It's the
Yep.
same in business, right?
And I love that concept of you need to be the CEO for where your business is at the
Yeah.
moment. Can you talk a little bit more about that and maybe how your role changed using your company as an example?
Yeah, I'd love to. And a lot of CEOs, founders will say, I'm only good at this and I can't grow with a business. I disagree with that. I think it's the approach. So when I start out with something, a new business, anybody I'm working with or something that I'm doing, I'm always thinking about, initially, I'm thinking about four stages. I'm thinking about the idea, then I'm thinking about proving scalable traction, then I'm thinking about packaging to scale, and then I'm thinking about scaling. And all of those stages are really hard. And I think the hardest one from a mental or brain power standpoint is the idea. Because a lot of folks will say, oh, I'll have this company and it'll be impacting all these people and all these amazing things will happen. Okay, well, altruistically, that sounds great and that's amazing, but the idea has to be how we're going to get there. So, really thinking through the idea and then going out and proving that it works and packaging and testing really quick, really inexpensively. And then once we start to get some traction, great, let's build on that. And then let's start packaging to be able to scale what we have. So as I think about the aerospace example, the first year, I'm on the road every week, 8 months out of that first year selling, going out and hunting and killing what we needed to pay the bills. There was no reserve anywhere to be able to, tap into. Never raised a dime for any of my companies. Whatever we did in business, that's what we were able to use to fund the business. And I remember when I took this company over in late '93, it was for its debt. I was working as a supervisor in this small electroplating shop. We had 25 employees. All of our business went away overnight. My boss said, close it or sell it. You got 30 days. I couldn't find anybody to buy it. And I said, you know what? I've got this idea. You don't believe in it. You've told me it'll never work. I've never done it before, but I believe it will. Let me assume the debt. In total, it was $600,000
Oof.
roughly. And he said, sure. And
I'm sure he did.
yeah, 200,000 was to creditors and
Mhm.
400,000 was paper debt we weren't able to pay because we couldn't afford it. So for him, it was 3,000 a month, no interest. So 11 point whatever years he got paid back. But that first year, I couldn't afford the two other people left standing to pay them left standing with me. So I said, look, I've got this idea. I think it's going to be amazing. I'll give you some provisional equity, provisional in that if you leave, you have to sell it back, but I can't pay you. Are you good with it? And one of them said, yeah, this sounds amazing. Sign me up. It's going to be great. The other guy said, it'll never work. We don't have money. We don't have equipment. We don't have customers, but sign me up anyway. I just want to see what's going to happen here. This is really interesting. And then fast forward 23 years, that person got a check for over $30 million. So that wasn't
Stop it.
that wasn't horrible. It worked out. So really hard, lots of stuff going on, made every mistake you can possibly make, like all of it. But I actually believe that we have to struggle better. Like the harder
Mhm.
it gets, I've done it so many times in my life now that I get this warm feeling inside that this is going to be amazing when I come out the other side. But most people, when they talk about it, oh, I had to walk barefoot in the snow both ways uphill and
Mhm. Mhm.
hard, and this is it's like, oh, this is amazing that we get to do it. And the harder it is, that's our development time as a CEO to work through it. So I'm always trying to change with everybody I work with perspective on struggle. You can't develop anywhere without some effort, I believe,
Yeah.
physically, mentally, emotionally, all of that. So how can you act like a victim every time it gets hard when how else can you possibly grow? How does that set with you, Karen?
I mean, I agree, that I think you need some adversity, number one, in order to grow, and also to make you more nimble and to allow you to evolve with the times and with trends within your industry. And if you don't have any struggle, if you're just sort of gliding through, you might be missing out on things that other people are picking up on. And so then you're kind of just where you are, maybe where you've been for the past 10 years, while you're like, wait, how is this other person doing all this cool stuff? We're in the same industry. I'm confused.
Mhm. Because they're embracing the struggle and continually getting better, lifting more weights, getting
Mm-hmm.
whatever you want to call it. I think about it just like if you're a martial artist. let's say you're into Taekwondo and you're kicking and punching air all day long, and then you go to a tournament where you have to face an opponent, you lose every time. You actually have to have live resistance.
Yeah.
Resistance in business is working with our employees, with customers, competition, marketing, all those things, and being on the front lines, doing smarter and smarter things all the time. And here's one giant opportunity, I think, for virtually every single business. And you've heard it before. It's called business model. So when I ask founders of companies, CEOs, presidents, really of any size, explain your business model to me, less than 2% can explain it clearly. So
Mm.
when we get frustrated that our team members are making decisions that don't make sense for the business, they're not sitting there thinking, oh, I want to do something to harm the business. They're doing what they think is in the best interest of the business, but they don't understand the business model. And the simplest version of the business model would be, how do we price? Why did we come up with that price? And then what are all the costs and approaches to delivering our products and services? And then what's the profit on doing that? And then the exciting part, the potential for future profit as we optimize and scale. And I get to a place where in every single company I work with, including mine, every leader, I don't care where you're at in the business, you can explain the business model. Then all of a sudden, they're making way better decisions that make sense. I mean, I absolutely love that, and it can be as little as a couple of months of intentionally doing this, where you're nudging around the business model. Next thing you know, somebody will bring something up, and another team member will say, "What is that? How does that help the business model over these other things?" Yay, we're there. We're all making really
Yeah.
good decisions, and it doesn't just have to be leaders; it can be anybody. If I've got a small gym or physical therapy practice, and I've got two or three employees, they should understand that too, because it's in their benefit.
Right. And I'm so glad that you mentioned that because it's something that I don't think a lot of employees, I mean, I can only speak for the physical therapy world. I think they don't understand what, why you charge what you charge and
Mhm.
what goes into running the business to you, to, I guess, justify why you charge what you charge and then what the profit is. I think that a lot of employees aren't aware of that. And I think you see that frustration, or at least I see that frustration when people are like, I don't understand why I'm not making $150,000, $170,000 a year when they're charging the insurance companies $400 a visit. You know what I mean? But it's because it was never explained like, this is what we charge. We only get paid 200. We have all of these, line items that need to be paid to keep the doors open. But you're right. If people, I'm a big proponent. I think people should know the financial um, implications of a company and why you do what you do. Because if that were the case, then people would be like, oh, okay, now I understand. What can I do to contribute? How can we improve the overall revenue of the business because then maybe that would get you paid more.
Yeah, and why not have an intentional these things? Objectively, you actually get more. So we play this out. We all understand how we price, and I'm a fan of a pricing policy. And the one I like that just seems to fit everything is we want to charge as much as we possibly can while being the best value alternative and encouraging future business. Never want to gouge anybody, have 10 different prices and they talk to each other and they never come back.
Mm-hmm.
And then all of the costs and approaches to doing it, we need this many hours just to be able to basically pay our bills. Everything above that, it goes more. And then whatever's left over, I'm a fan of, as we grow that, then we share a percentage with all the team members. So it's a team sport, which is really cool. I mean, there can be an individual component in there too, but as a team sport. And even when I've had, 500 employees in a company, I would make sure everybody's paid fairly relative to each other. And then whatever the profit is, I would give 16% of the total net profit back to all of the team members proportionate to their income. So if payroll was, in my case for round numbers, let's say $1 million and the 16% of profit was $100,000, everybody got a 10% bonus.
Mm-hmm.
Same
Mm-hmm.
payroll is, $20,000 and there's 5,000 bucks. Well, everybody gets a 25% bonus.
Right.
And then now we're playing this amazing game of business, and I would give everybody a copy of all the financials if you don't understand those things, I would even come up with a translation into what I would call a plain English version of a detailed.
Hmm.
You can see every dollar we spent, every penny and where it went. And once team members see that, it's like, well, why did I use so many of these bandages or those wraps? Or we could do this differently. We don't need to buy. I mean, something as this is crazy. Something as simple as why are we buying spoons to stir the coffee when we could save $300 a year on it if we switch to swizzle sticks?
Hmm.
To have every team member going after that stuff because it benefits them without sacrificing. We want to continually improve the quality of our products and services. That's a fun game. But if we don't create that environment, you and I and the leaders will get super frustrated. They're not making decisions in a way that we never asked them to make because we never educated them on how the business works. And so we remain frustrated. So when you say, why is it all that this is so hard for me, but it's so easy for them? Well, they're creating a better environment from which all the team members create value.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And that, so what I'd like to, you had mentioned it earlier, the mind methodology. And I think it kind of flows from our conversation here. And you could correct me if I'm wrong, but it stands for mission, initiative, numbers, and drivers, right?
It actually stands for most important number and drivers.
Most important number and drivers. Okay.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that methodology and why numbers. Well, first, what is the most important number and why is it important?
Yeah, it's about alignment to value creation. So for a business, what's the one number that's reflective of the value of the business and will drive the majority of the right behaviors? There's no perfect number because numbers will drive, if you chase it, behaviors that are super healthy and good for the company and could be some that aren't. And you could pick the wrong number and the majority of the behaviors could be not healthy for the company. But let's say it's profit. If I wanted to build a physical therapy practice and have it be worth something someday, if if the practice is me and I leave, there's nothing to sell. There isn't. But if I build something that's kind of growing on its own because of all the things I put in place and the fun I've had, standing this up, now it's worth something. But let's say profit is the most important number. So net profit, that's it for the business. And now we know that. And where are we starting? Where are we going? At any point in time, are we on track for that? And then what other things are, of course, are we measuring to help us make better decisions to improve it? And then every part of the business, every team, every function, even if it's a small team of two or three, you have marketing going on, you have sales going on, you have onboarding experience, all of that. What's the most important number for each of those areas of the business that says you're winning or losing? It defines the value that it's supposed to be creating, and it drives the majority of the right behaviors. And then keep all these numbers in balance. And it doesn't matter if you have three people and, let's say one number for the company, and then you've got one for sales and marketing and experience and all of that stuff. So maybe three or four others. Or you have 100,000 employees and over 1,000 teams. Doesn't matter. Every team can have one number that's descriptive of the value it should have been designed to create that will drive the majority of the right behaviors. So once you have that and you can see where you're at because you're measuring it, let's say monthly, you're updating it. Are you on track or not? And then my next question is, what's the best work we're doing to improve it? And I want to see that. And you mentioned one of our resources on our website, ETW, around meetings, a meeting playbook. That's really what it is. When we meet, what's the value we're designed to create for this team that's together? How would we know that we're creating it? And what's the best work we're doing to improve it? That's all I want to know. And
Hmm.
even with 500 employees, which isn't that big on a larger company scale, within seconds, I could see what every team in the company was doing, where they were at on their most important number, and the best work they were doing, the actions, the meetings, what they were talking about. It was so incredible. The transparency was just incredible. And every team member acted like the CEO of their own role. They knew their numbers, they're going after it. They knew that the value, they were designed to create their team and the best work that they could do to improve it. It's so simple. It doesn't have to be more complicated than that. Whether it's a startup, small, mid-sized, large company,
Hmm.
I think we make it harder than it needs to be.
And can you give an example of what that might look like in real life? So, what the most important number would be, and how you would maybe talk to your employees about that or have a meeting about it?
Yeah, there's a company I took over. I do a lot of consulting work, and a board of directors asked me to come in called Dinner Table. And it's about building a community of families raising kids or parents raising kids to create value in the world. And this was in May of last year. So I meet with a team, and we probably had to get rid of, they were burning hundreds of thousands a month and not bringing value. So I met with the team, said, okay, we're going to do this model, which is my model around building communities. And this is something I've been thinking about for like 10 years. So we take the team from quite large down to about seven. Said, okay, the first one is generating qualified leads. Well, the first, it's about awareness. So what's the best work we can do to increase our social following? So we've gone from basically zero in this last, 8, 9 months to 287,000 Instagram followers. Yay. So
What?
that's that team's most important number. Um, I I think it'll be at least a 500,000, maybe even 750,000 by the end of this year. So they've got their most important number. Now, next is bringing them into cultivating that into our free dinner table family community. So in 8.5 months, we have 31,000 parents in our dinner table family free community. So they're getting weekly PDFs to help, provide gigs for their children. And anyway, it's fantastic. And then we cultivate that. And so there's that number. That's amazing. In 8 months, go to 31,000. Now, from there, we have two more interactive paid communities. So we cultivate into that. One's $30 a month, one's $100 a month. The value's incredible. I have communities that I run, and it just the transformation in families is off the charts. So we have most important numbers around both of those communities. There's a lot of members in those communities. And then we have ongoing experience. So we have an experience team around that. And so it's about retention and feedback. So to what degree are they getting value coming in? So that their whole world is about showing a lot of value. You can measure it with retention, and it's going really well. And then we have content. They're the leader of content. I call her the CEO of content, and she's amazing, and she's leading a team building the content. My team contributes. I write a lot of it. So every one of these teams has a most important number, all of it in balance. And every single week when we meet, everybody has the next thing in all of these different areas they can do to improve their most important number. And we're always keeping all of it in balance with each other. And it is so much fun. And they all fully understand the business model and how their team fits into it. So when we meet with content, what's the best work we can do to have content increase our most important number, which right now is revenue at this earlier stage company, and quite a bit of recurring revenue in just a short amount of time.
Mm-hmm.
All the resources, this startup will be profitable. First month, I think, positive cash flow in April, and wow, I mean, it just works. And so they all understand the business model. And when we work on strategy, they all understand strategy is nothing more than approaches to increasing the value of the business. So we have a strategic initiative. It's not continuous improvement, which we all should do all the time. It's something that will cause a step change. And then when we go after that, every leader understands what that is. And then here's something that I always find interesting. Most companies like their stuff way more than their customers actually do. I mean, the customers like it enough because they're buying, but the value of our products and services that we have, I make sure that our focus group are the tens of thousands of members that we have now. What are they really saying? Just because you like it and it feels good as an internal team member doesn't mean much to me, because there's a lot they've said, this feels amazing, it's great, but well, it doesn't help the business model. You like it, but our customers aren't buying it.
Mm.
And so let's find out what they have, and then what can you do in your role, whether it's content or experience or, community. I train all of the coaches that come on board that are building their own communities. What can each of us do to improve our most important number, which for the company, again, is revenue at this point, but it'll change to profit once we get to a certain level. So that's an example of how it works. So here's 8 months building a business from scratch, a complete hard reset on a business. And the response globally has been incredible, 31,000 members in 67 countries. So this is one
Amazing.
example, and I have dozens of other examples that I personally worked with, as well as hundreds of companies my team has worked with.
Yeah, I love that example. So, if I can summarize and correct me if I'm wrong. So, for this company, revenue is the most important number at the moment. And everyone who works in the company is aware of like what that target number might be. And so, if I'm the head of the awareness team, my number might be, for example, Instagram followers. So you have 287,000 Instagram followers. Maybe our target number would be 400,000. And so we know if we create more awareness, more people may sign up and we'll have a greater revenue. So we can then track how many followers we have and does that equate to greater revenue
Yes. And so
ish.
yeah, it's 100% right. I would just sort of add to it from a
Yeah.
holistic creation standpoint. For the Instagram followers, our plan is to get to 500,000 by the end of the year, so they have their goal. It does equate to more revenue, but the most important thing to me is it equates to the impact. Having many more families, and my goal is to have our dinner table method in millions of families over the next 3 years. That's going to change their lives dramatically. It's like the communities that I work with, seeing the parents change their perspective, seeing the kids go from I probably won't amount to much that I can do anything, I can start anywhere and go everywhere. That's what I'm really interested in. So we want to grow that because I think about mission first, brand integrity second, shareholder return third. And yes, revenue and all of it goes, but we're creating material value, we're creating emotional energy value, and we're creating spiritual or connectedness value.
Mm-hmm.
Whether you're deeply religious or not, spiritual is to me is about being connected. And in all of my businesses, I've had tons of programs always ongoing around connecting and strengthening relationships with the team members. So all of that fits in. And the reason I emphasize this, when you only focus on the money piece of it, you're out of balance. It doesn't feel right. And if we're showing up to get as much money as we possibly can, which unfortunately too much of the world is doing that from a business standpoint, bring amazing value and the rest of it will happen. So
Mm-hmm.
when I sold my aerospace company, we got a 21.6x multiple of EBITDA at a time in the aftermarket. If you got 8x, that was a really strong number. But because we created holistic value, we got there fast, a super believable story about where we're going, finding a strategic buyer. It was amazing. So I just think it's important to think about the whole thing. And if we want to have a bigger impact in the world, we have to generate a lot of money, and keeping all of this in balance, material, emotional, and spiritual value creation. Wow, does it feel good? And you go faster financially too.
And how are you measuring that qualitative data? So I think most people understand how to measure the quantitative data, but how are you measuring the qualitative data from your customers and even internally from your employees?
You mean essentially around the other two buckets, emotional and
Yeah.
spiritual?
Yeah.
So emotional energy or positive emotional energy to me is the scarcest commodity on the planet. When it's on 9 or 10 on a scale from 0 to 10, you feel like you can do anything. Your arm falls off, whatever, I've got another one. When it's on 1 or 0, you get a flat tire and it runs your week. So that's the X factor for leaders. So what's the energizing environment we create? And then the same thing on the connectedness side, what are all the behaviors that cause that to happen? And so what I've done in all of my businesses is when you do a performance review, I call them performance snapshots. You've got the measurable performance part on the material side. So what is that? How did you contribute to it? What did you do well? What could be done better so we can keep going faster? On the culture side, you're basically looking at the behaviors and attitudes that you're measuring. How well are you living those things, and how well are you encouraging others to live it? So you actually can pretty objectively measure that stuff. Even with 500 employees, it was easy. Um, every year, twice a year, every single team member for the behaviors that were in our alignment tools that created our intentional culture. They had to have one example for each. And again, did this twice a year, but one example for each of where they applied it to increase profitability, cash flow, or improve customer experience, internal or external. So we are capturing all of that data and they're showing where they're objectively applying it. That's how I would go after it.
Hmm.
What are we really looking for when people say I want to improve employee engagement? What do they really mean by that? And I
Right.
always engage with what? And so for me, we want to improve productive engagement. And as a leader, I think our job is to, create value with and through others. And I believe we should be constantly, appropriately, passionately talking about what's possible and engaging everybody in these really productive, positive conversations and actions and how we're actually going to get there. So that's the engagement that I want, whether I've got one employee, three employees, 30, 1,000, doesn't really matter. I want to create that intentional culture. So we have the numbers we're objectively measuring, and we have culture where we're looking for your application of it to create even more value. This is totally doable. And I've done it at scale. Yeah.
Yeah, it's almost like how do you measure happiness or measuring happiness at work and or joy at work. There are ways to do it. I think you just have to um make it specific to your company.
Well, yeah, and I think it has to be. This is such a great conversation right now. It has to be intentional. Like if it's a survey, are you happy? Yes or no? Our job is to make employees happy. Good luck with that one.
Yeah.
Um, for me, my most important internal number is fulfillment,
Mm.
and and I want to make sure that because that's something that even when I'm not happy, because I'm really good at being uncomfortable and to a pretty large degree because I built my tolerance to it, and that's where real value is created. So as I'm going through periods like that, I'm not happy all the time. However, my internal fulfillment keeps going up. If I'm accomplishing my mission of driving holistic value creation behaviors into the world, and I'm doing this, I feel really good about that. Like that's just amazing. So I look at internal fulfillment, I look at self-esteem, and when employees accomplish challenging things and they're in the game with us, their self-esteem rises, their fulfillment rises. That's how I go after it.
Hmm.
And if we just ask the question, when I think about culture, and this is an easy survey to the team, you've explained the business model to them. They understand what our customers are saying about what we do and how they can improve that experience. Okay, agree. We have all of that. Now, when it comes to culture, why not survey them and ask the question, what are the attitudes and behaviors that you think cause the most value to be created in our practice that we have here? Small, medium, large, doesn't matter. And then you go around, you collect all this data, and you come up with, hey, here's a few behaviors that create the most value. And now let's hold everybody accountable to it. Maybe we have a mission that describes why our clients, work with us, and a vision about where we're going and the impact we want to have. And then these are the behaviors we're holding everybody accountable to, and we want to exemplify them. So when it's going well, great, you really exemplify this particular behavior. When it's not going well, hey, we all agreed to this. It's an amazing management tool. In the aerospace company example I gave you, we had 6 behaviors. High-performing team members throughout the organization do what they say they will. They have a personal commitment to the end result. They treat company resources as their own. They're respectful, honest, and straightforward. They present and pursue permanent solutions as opposed to dwelling on problems. I'll remember these forever because they're in my bones. I mean, we wasn't just expensive wallpaper. This is something you can really sink your teeth into. These things I'm calling alignment tools to drive an intentional culture.
Yeah, and it kind of goes beyond the values. Put that in quotation marks for people who aren't watching on YouTube, but to me it sounds like it goes beyond just company values, and
Yeah.
that it's a value but adding an action to it
Yeah,
almost.
yeah. Let's touch on that. So I'll go with my aerospace example again, since we're talking about it. Late 90s, we had a mission that we designed to tell customers in a compelling way why they should do business with us, and it told It was meant to tell every employee why you get a paycheck, because if we don't do that well, our jobs are in jeopardy, including mine. And then we had a list of values that I don't know if I just got them out of a book, but the top one was integrity. And I remember asking, and we only had 70 employees back then, how are you applying integrity to make us measurably better as a company? Because I believe everything we do should at least be done with the intent of making us better. Sometimes,
Hmm.
and I got 10 crazy answers that told me I completely wasted my time. So I said, well, what are we really trying to accomplish here? And I said, you know what? I want at least half of our team members at every point in time to be acting, behaving, and leading as good or better than the top 10% at our strongest, most admired competitors. And if we do that, nobody will ever beat us. So I told all the employees, this is what we want to accomplish. From your view, please write down the observable behaviors of the best folks you've ever worked with on their best days. And out of 70 employees, 68 of them participated in the survey, which is crazy cool. And this giant list came in, but it distilled down to this list of six that stood the test of time. And so that's how we came up with it. And on every core product that we ever chose to focus on, nobody on the planet could beat us. We were beating our competition in China on price,
Amazing.
our core products, because of this intentional connecting culture to value creation, if you will.
Yeah. And I love the inclusion of employees because sometimes it stays with the CEO or the C-suite and the employees are like, okay, and I think those are the people who are like, I'm just going to a job. And when I leave the job, for the day, the job's done. Versus when you include your employees in decision making, it gives them a sense of ownership and a sense of pride in the company. So they're not just like, I've got to go to work. You know what I mean? Like the attitude's a little different.
Well, 100%. And I believe most leaders think that they're doing all that kind of stuff. I'll give them what they need to know when they need to know it. But do you want to have a transactional relationship with the employees, like just come and do this and you get paid and you leave and you're not involved in anything else, to your point? Or do you want this developmental, we're all working together, our company, regardless of the size, it's a value creation machine. You've got your part. Everybody's the CEO of their own role. And if they're really having an impact and they're engaged in all of that, they're going to be so much more productively engaged at work. They're going to feel better. It's going to be fun. But if it's just transactional, don't think, just do, and we don't educate them on business model and strategy and the value of
Yeah.
the rest of it, then you get what you get. And I don't even think in the United States, and this is just my view, we're getting 10% of the value creation potential that it could be. And it's because of the environments we create in the workplace and government and just all of it. You're either, in my view, objectively creating value in the world, or you are taking it out of the world by rigging the game in some way.
Mm.
And just imagine if this country got to 30%, 50%, 80%. Unbelievable what's possible. And so that's a big part of my mission. What I'm trying to do is just unlock that, whether it's with families, for profits, nonprofits. It's so exciting what's possible. And I think the largest pent up untapped value creation potential is in the kids of low income families, because they have the drive.
Mm.
For the more affluent families, even upper middle class and above, the kids are kind of lost. Parents are taking all the struggle away. They're not ready for adulthood. And we're seeing that in the employees that we hire. It's like, oh my gosh, it's going to take a long time to balance them out.
Yeah. Yeah. And I just think of like the amount of creativity you can unleash in people that is just going to grow the business, right? Because you may not clock it yourself and you need someone else to open your eyes to something that you don't know or you're not familiar with. So we're recording this the day after the Super Bowl. Full disclosure, I'm an Eagles fan. Um, and I was watching an interview with Jalen Hurts, and someone said, "Why do you have the majority of your team are all female? Why? Why is that?" And he said, "Well, it didn't start out that way, but I hired the best people, and I found that they have an eye I don't have,
Mhm.
and they're able to open me up to things that I didn't even know were capable." And I just love that. Like they have an eye I don't have. And by what you're saying and what you do is you're empowering your employees to give you more eyes that you don't have.
Yeah, we're here to collectively create value. Here's your part. How do we go faster?
Mm-hmm.
And what I say is responsibly and continually increase the value of the business, which has to be increasing, experience value and all of that. So yeah, 100%. And I hire for the most capability. The dinner table team that I was describing to you, the majority of the folks on the team are women. They're knocking it out of the park. Men and women are different for me as I work with them. Men will say yes and run towards something that they're only 20% capable of doing it. Women won't do it when they're 80% capable of doing it.
Totally.
But you just break that down and constantly develop. And here's one of the things I just find it hilarious, and I guess it's tragic a little bit too when it comes to developing employees. Leaders will tell me, I explained it, they didn't get it. And so they'll just never get it. They don't get it. And then I ask, well, how long did it take you to get it? I don't know, like 10 years. Well, 10 minutes? Like your job is to develop them, and we should be
Right.
constantly developing our team.
Right. That's funny. So true, right? It's just up, throw your hands up. I give up. They don't get it. Whatever.
Hey.
Oh
So
my gosh.
everything's about developing. And even at towards the end, when I sold my aerospace business, there were 64 leaders. And the majority of my time I spent working with them to develop them to create more value. It could be a salesperson that when I hired them, they sold $1 million in a year and thought, God, it doesn't get any better than this. This is incredible. Oh my gosh. And then fast forward with some development. When I sold it, I've got one individual built a team was selling over $40 million a year from $1 million. And
Mm-hmm.
now he's running something I think pretty quickly will be bigger than what I built. Isn't that amazing? So
Absolutely.
folks that we're developing, it doesn't matter if they're frontline team members, we should just do it and we should give them the time we gave ourselves. And if we're intentional about it, they'll get there in half the time it took us.
Exactly. Exactly. Building better faster.
Yeah. And have fun.
Yeah.
When it's hard and you're struggling, that's what we need. We need to struggle better, and I think we all need to do less better. And I always wonder, like, why don't they do less better? Because they're just basic things. We need to make people aware of us. We need to close the qualified leads that come in. We need to onboard them. We need to continually improve this experience. And then they're moving along. Things aren't going as well as we'd like. We'd like it to go faster. Oh, let's go do that thing. Oh, let's go do that thing. No, let's do the basics better. Let's do less better, and let's struggle better going through that. And once you get through that struggle and you did the right work because things got better, now you're ready for the next struggle. And this is always the way it's going to be. And I heard somebody say it the other day and I love it. He goes, the problem's the way. I'm like, yes, exactly. Wherever that problem is, lean into it, solve it, make sure it's in balance with everything else. And again, you're doing the right work when the most important number for your small practice, medium practice, business, whatever it is incrementally going up and you're on plan.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I could talk for hours, but we are going to start wrapping things up. So, as we do that, you had alluded to something I said earlier about all the amazing free resources that you have on your website. So, where's your website? Where can people find you? Whether if they have questions for you or they want to follow you on LinkedIn, how can they find you?
Yeah, for sure. Connect with me on LinkedIn if you would like to. I'm pretty easy to find there. I have a podcast titled Show Your Value, The Art of Value Creation. Just search by my name and you'll find it everywhere, YouTube, Apple, etc. If you go to my website, which is etw.com, there are a ton of free resources there that have taken literally decades to refine and put in there from all of my experience in the different businesses. I also run something I call CEO Execute Mastermind groups. So any founder that's interested in, or CEO, whether it's yours, a hired gun, doesn't matter, interested in responsibly continually growing the value of your business, that's our focus. So we have a number of those groups. So yeah, go to the website etw.com and you'll find all of that.
Perfect. And to the listeners, listen, you guys, these resources are really good. And there's not just one. There's many. there's worksheets, there's playbooks. So head on over there. We'll have a link wherever platform you're listening to right now. Just go to the show notes. One click will take you directly to that resource page in particular. And to your LinkedIn and, and to the everything you just said. We'll have links to everything.
And as well as my book titled Your Most Important Number, I updated it a few months ago with an extra chapter that went in there titled Why Sometimes CEOs Fail. And the subtitle of the chapter is Does Your Team Really Understand? So encourage you to read that as well. It's everywhere you can find books, including an audiobook.
Oh, I love audiobooks. That's what I listen to audiobooks literally every day. So thank you for having an audiobook. Now, as we wrap up, I have one last question. It's one I ask everyone. Knowing where you are now in your life and career, what advice would you give to your 20-year-old self?
The hardest part about giving that advice is what could you say that they would even hear?
Mm.
And I've had a number of sessions, dinners talking about different topics, and I'll ask that question if you could give your 16 or 20-year-old self advice, and it's amazing. And then I say, okay, let's go around again and give yourself advice that you could actually hear. And so for my 20-year-old self, a lot of 20 somethings today are looking for the silver bullet, the magic pill, the one thing.
Yes.
My advice is just start. Even if you're a dishwasher, be the best dishwasher they ever had, because that's what I did at my first job in high school. And I was, and then be the best busboy and then be the best cook. It will expose you to all kinds of opportunities and you build on it. I got my start pulling weeds at 6 years old for 25 cents an hour back in the late 60s. That was a lot of money for a kid. And then I went to shoveling snow and all. So you have to start and be the best that ever did it. And there's dignity in all work. And you will discover over time what really aligns with your value creation superpowers, if you will. And I don't even know that I would hear that back then, but I was
Mm.
already doing it. But I think that's the challenge with advice. And if, 20 somethings and, even teenagers, yeah, 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 yeah. And they walk out of the room. It's like, he had no idea. I
Right.
just,
Just went right over.
but they knew everything, which I knew everything at 16. I don't know what age you knew everything, but that was my golden age.
Yeah. Yeah. I would probably say mine was probably maybe 1920.
Okay.
In certain aspects, certainly when it came to my parents, of course I knew everything. I was also in PT school, in which you find out very quickly you don't know anything. So it's a real, balancing act there.
Yeah, for sure. This is
Um,
fantastic. Thank you for having me on. I could talk with you.
Pleasure. I know. I was like, sooner or later we'll have to cut this. We'll have to cut this off, but maybe we'll have you back on again if you'll agree to it. That would be great.
Love to. Happy to.
Perfect. Well, Lee, thank you so much. This was wonderful. And everyone listening, thanks so much for tuning in. Have a great couple of days and stay healthy, wealthy, and smart.